the problem with diversity, equity, and inclusion is that it's ham-fisted. It's hamstrung by its moral authority or its righteousness into thinking it's correct and already on the right side of history, but it's very ham-fisted in what it's actually doing. It just seems like it's this culture, equity, diversity, inclusion culture within the elite institutions has fostered just really bad discipline or a lack of discipline and thinking of consequences of really doing the numbers. That it seems like that they're constantly intoxicated by some sort of moral impetus rather than actually reasoning through how these things actually play out. It seems like they fail because not because diversity and inclusion themselves are bad concepts, but because the implementation is just very poorly done.
I hate that the word that we have to use is moral impetus, because I don't even think that people want diversity. I think people who are uneducated on this issue believe that diversity and inclusion is a moral issue. But I think the people who are actually out there implementing diversity and inclusion, they have a lot more. There are more cynical motives at hand. Diversity, equity, and inclusion is founded upon the idea that white supremacy is responsible for disparate outcomes in our society. Mm-hmm. It's founded upon the idea of erasing white supremacy, and if Asians, go ahead.
And success somehow. Success is a marker of sin on some level. If you are successful, there's something wrong with the system. It's not enough to say that people don't get ahead. It fosters resentment towards anybody who does. It's that Harrison Bergeron, that Vonnegut, it's Vonnegut essay about having to weight everybody down that's strong and make everybody who's beautiful ugly, because it's more about the resentment of the beautiful and the good and the true and the successful than it is about the lifting up of the undertrodden or underserved. It just seems like that is a tendency. And then they use, in my opinion, white supremacy as a guise for despising of success, because eventually they target everything that's successful.
Right, because their definition of white supremacy is actually targeting Asian Americans. I mean, it's just crazy. They think in the name of diversity and inclusion, in the name of dismantling white supremacy, they think it's okay to purposefully lower the percentage of Asians at gifted and talented programs. They think in the name of diversity and equity and inclusion, for the purposes of dismantling white supremacy, it's okay to discriminate against Asian Americans in universities. And then later on, they take that mindset over into their industries. Every Fortune 500 company now has a diversity and equity and inclusion component to it, a human resources component to it. And they're taking that ideology with them to Google and to Facebook. And it's wreaking havoc on Asian Americans. And I write about it. I write about the Facebook is 95%. Facebook's software engineers are 90 to 95% Asian or Asian American. Could you imagine? But you know why? Because those are the only crop of talent in the United States right now that is talented enough to be a Facebook software product engineer. And yet at every rung of promotion at Facebook and Google, the percentage of Asians decreases up to senior management, where a percentage of Asians is now less than 20% at Facebook and Google. And whatever the explanation for that is, whether it actually is implicit bias against Asians or whether it's simply that Asians aren't communicating and things like that, God forbid, you would use that cultural explanation of like, oh, Asians are just not good communicators, so they can't be promoted and stuff. God forbid you ever use that cultural explanation to explain disparate outcomes of any other racial minority.
Yeah. The problem with pointing out hypocrisy is that the people who are critiquing or criticizing right now, they don't care a whit about consistency or hypocrisy or even reason and rationality or consistency. They care about winning. They care about implementing a certain worldview, and it doesn't matter the means whatsoever. It doesn't matter who gets thrown under the bus or put on the chopping block, as long as the project is going forward. That woke dominion is proceeding according to their moral impetus. Sorry to use that word again.